Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. If you wouldn't mind, do me a favor and just sign in with your name as we get started here at our webinar, which we are recording for our YouTube page, just so everybody knows. So some housekeeping, some clock hour information for those of you who haven't been to one of our webinars before. If you can just sign in with your, like I said, your name, the school, and the chat and district in the chat, that would be amazing. The slides and resources are going to be available to you after the presentation, and you will receive an email where you'll rate and evaluate this training from PD Enroller, and that is how you will receive your clock hours. And if you want to, you're more than welcome to use the chat. We are a small group today, so absolutely feel free to jump in, chime in, participate as you would like. And we'll see how it goes. So welcome to one of our fall winter 2024 webinar offerings. We're going to talk today about fitting in financial education with decimal operations for younger learners, elementary school. Although I did see Michael said he was at Evergreen Middle School. Could you let me know what grades you teach if you are in a classroom so I can customize the webinar as much as I can to be relevant to you guys and your needs. That would be awesome. All right, so we'll go ahead and move forward here. Would like to start with a land acknowledgement. This map is from native-land.ca, which is linked. And I would just like to acknowledge that I am joining you from the traditional lands of the Spokane people. And recognize that the Spokane people have stewarded this land since time immemorial and still inhabit it today. All right, so a little bit about me. My name again is Amy Cleaver. Hello, I currently serve as the elementary program supervisor for the Financial Education Public-Private Partnership, which I will tell you more about in just a moment. I was born and raised in Spokane, Washington, and I am a Pacific Northwest girl. I have stayed in my little corner over here. I did my undergrad at University of Portland, got my master's in education at Eastern Washington University, and have classroom experience ranging from PK all the way up to 7th grade. Math, I was terrible at math when I was a kid. Like I told myself that, and other people told me that. And if you teach math, that kids, all of us really can tend to apply some labels to ourselves when it comes to our math attitudes and beliefs about ourselves. And I think that can be really true about financial education too. So I am not a person that anyone would have predicted when they were a kid, that I would be either as obsessed with math as I am, or a math teacher, or a financial education instructor, which just goes to show how much we can grow as people throughout our different stages in life. And I like to refer to myself as a financial wellness work in progress because we really believe in that, looking at personal finance through a view of financial wellness and how it can impact other areas of our lives and benefit other areas of our lives as well. So who is SEP? Who are the Financial Education Public-Private Partnership? Tis us. It's a long name, but it's an important job. We were formed in 2004 by our Washington State Legislature, and our overarching charge is to increase access to financial education across our K-12 Washington schools. And we do this by reviewing financial education instructional materials. And we have all of those materials listed on our website, which again is linked in this presentation, which you will receive after this, and provide professional development and training opportunities at no cost, like the one you're participating in today. We are also facilitating a grant. This is our second year of our grant opportunity, where we are providing grant funds to districts who commit to increasing their financial education. So if that's something you're interested in, you should definitely check out our website and get in touch with some other members of our staff who know a lot more about that than I do. So today we are going to talk about elementary education. We're going to talk about ways to fit in financial education when the elementary school day is already packed. right? The elementary and middle school day is already packed if we're honest about it. And so how do we kind of sneak in some of this personal finance while reinforcing the math skills that our students need to develop college and career readiness in general? So we're going to talk about some of the value of K-5. I'm going to make an argument for bringing it into the elementary classroom, even though I know from experience, like I said, the elementary classroom plate is full. We're going to talk a little bit about standards, but not a ton because nobody loves to talk about standards. Kidding. But we will look at some of the connections and some of what's missing. And then we're going to look at two different lessons. We're going to dig into two of them. One of them pretty in depth. One of them is a little bit briefer. And so you'll walk away with those activities that are ready to print and go for class tomorrow if you needed them to. So hopefully they'll kind of get your brain going about ways that you can start integrating some of this content. And we're going to play some games. We're going to have some fun. It should be good. Are you guys down for a Kahoot? Do I have enough people in here to participate in a Kahoot with me? I will mail you a prize. I know some people are driving. That's the other thing is that I've gotten some messages. Some people are not they're in motion. So I want to make sure we can do this in a safe way. Oh, Catherine's like, yes, I love it. Okay. Let's see here. All right. So we'll go ahead and get that started and I will bring this over. Can we see that on the main screen now? All right, and give you guys a chance. Linda, you should probably join this Kahoot as well. Lance, you should probably join the Kahoot. So hopefully this is displaying for everybody. And so we're going to go through just a little bit of consumer Kahoot, some consumer finance information. We're going to focus a little bit on my favorite season, which is spooky season, which obviously has passed. We're getting ready to come up to a whole nother holiday. And holidays are an awesome time to talk about economics and goods and services. And it really does connect to the lesson we're going to get into a little bit later. So this one is focused on Halloween. And like I said, I know it's already past us by. Thanksgiving ones will usually come up around 2. But this is the start of the spending season, if we really think about it, right? We get into fall, and that's when a lot of our major holidays start and the spending starts. So, hi, Shania, welcome. I apologize if I said that one. So awesome to see you. I'm going to give you a second. Do you want to join the Kahoot? So like I was saying, this is a wonderful opportunity. We are going to focus on seasonal goods and services in one of the lessons that we're looking at. This is another way that we can bring in with trivia and just some of these transition times, some of this personal finance information that, otherwise our kids maybe would never even hear or think about or consider. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started just for time's sake here. All right, so this is our 2024 Halloween Kahoot, and I want to be upfront. I did not make this. This was created by NGPF, but I have fact checked a lot of it. So we'll go. So we're going to go with how much was total American spending on just candy last year, 2023. And again, we want our students to know, like, it takes a while for us to get this information for this year. So we're always comparing our numbers from the past. And oh, you guys all went for the big number, which I like. I like where your head's at. We were at $7.7 billion spent on candy last year. Candy, that's incredible to me. All right, so let's see what we get next. So what about a budget for Halloween? I don't know about you, but I don't even know as a kid if we had a budget for Halloween. It's important for our students to know that sometimes the adults in their lives have budgets they don't even know about. So what would you guess of these 4? We have 2 pretty low, 33, 48, and then 2 over $100. What do you think is the average American budget for supplies? Nice. We had one person with the correct answer. Over $100 is the average budget. When you think about costumes, candy, none of these things are really meant to be saved and reused for the next year. People grow out of costumes. Candy is supposed to be consumed. So Halloween is a real, it's a spending holiday, but also, oh, Linda, look at you. Also a one-time goods and services that we use. Which age bracket budgets higher than normal? Which of these age brackets, wow, that's a tongue twister, budgets about $150. So 40 $42 more than the average. We think younger or we think older? My age range, 35 to 44-year-olds. And I have a guess as to why, and we'll see if that answer is revealed later in this. But look at Shania. Nice job coming in. All right. What about the most popular Halloween purchase? Candy, decorations, costumes, food and drink. 4 essentials for Halloween. Right? Candy. So people are spending more money on candy these days. Although I would say that the decorations one is probably what puts my age range demographic into the higher zone on the last question. Decorations have really took off during COVID, during the pandemic, and it hasn't really slowed down spending related to that at all. Lands coming in. True or false? 50-50 shot here. The cost of pumpkins increased 30% from 2017 to 2023. You've been buying pumpkins every year. Y'all know that was the easy one, right? Pumpkins have gone up in price for sure, along with everything else. Talk about seasonal work. There's people out there whose whole livelihood depends on pumpkin growth. What percentage of Halloween costumes last year did at least, what percent of consumers did at least some of the shopping on Amazon? That commercial behemoth. 17, 33. One person got that one right as well, 61%. So we're looking at just about a little less than 2/3 of people are accessing the same producer in order to get these goods, which is interesting. Although I like that a lot of people thought it would actually be more. Smiley, whoever you are, you're jumping in. And I do apologize if anyone can hear my dogs in the background. True or false? Do most people begin shopping for Halloween in the first 2 weeks of October? Do you? And as a follow-up, how soon do you put up your Christmas tree? True, that is true. So kind of the consumer science theory is that we have the 4th of July for like a big holiday, and then there's kind of a drought as far as celebrations go. And Halloween, like I said, kicks off this celebration season of, kind of those winter holidays. And so people get really excited about it. And that's a part of the science behind the whole pumpkin spice launch so early as well. There's consumer science behind a lot of the marketing decisions that we see. Smiley, you've got 3 correct answers in a row, and we are proud of you. Let's finish this off. Which Halloween costume is the most popular among adults? I was a butterfly this year. Oh, I wonder if that's a hint. Ghost, gladiator, witch, or superhero? I feel like gladiator is oddly specific. It was a superhero. Among adults, that makes sense. We're kind of the Marvel's key demographic. You know what I mean? I know that for kids' costumes, Spider-Man is by far the most popular superhero costume for boys and girls. Smiley's taking over. Last couple questions here. Ooh, you can pick more than one. What is America's favorite candy? Multiple select. That's a pro feature. I don't pay for that feature, so I've never even used that feature before. My favorite part of Halloween this year was I take my cousin's kids and we sorted. Oh, look at that. It's tied. M&Ms and Reese's peanut butter cups. Very nice. Reese's peanut butter cups are my personal favorite. But we dumped out all of his candy and we sorted it into piles according to type, and then we counted it all. And it was wonderful fun for me. Last question. See if Smiley holds on to her lead. Their lead here. What percent of consumers consider Halloween to be an important household expense? 8%, 21%, 38, or 66. Nice. It was 38% actually consider this to be an important household. And we know if you're an educator in a classroom that you could have a kid who has Halloween as their most important holiday next to somebody who does not celebrate it, perhaps for cultural or other reasons. So we always framed it as spooky season, not really just Halloween. But let's see here. Lance got third. Good job, Lance. The dude got second and in first place. Amazing. Yay, Miley. All right, Miley. You direct message me so I know who you are, and then we will get you a door prize. Thank you so much for your participation. It's a small group, but it's a fun group. So let's talk about financial education in K-5 classrooms. If you have not come into any of our PDs before, which I know I see some familiar names, but I think there may be some first timers in here as well. We're just going to talk a little bit about what research shows and why I would advocate for bringing personal finance into a kindergarten classroom, a first grade classroom, because the common kind of comment would be, is that age appropriate? Aren't they a little young for that? Do they need to know that at that age? And research is showing us that actually, age 7 is where a lot of these concepts related to our financial behaviors will have developed. And so getting them in elementary is actually a really age appropriate time to start talking about money values and saving and spending and things like this. We know just from childhood development, from early as ages 3 or 4, kids understand the concept of shopping, right? We go to a place, we get things, we give money for it, and we come back with it, right? And we build on that from the age of 3. So if we switch thinking of personal finance from like budgeting a checkbook, let's not think about it like that. Let's think about it more like planning ahead, right? Budgeting or allocating our resources, experiencing delayed gratification, returning borrowed items, caring about our financial reputation. These are all really habits rooted in our social emotional development, and they're habits that we develop in childhood and we bring into adulthood. So, of course, we can always refine and polish our financial wellness journey. Will change as we grow and enter different areas of our life, but it's absolutely appropriate to start having these money conversations with kids as early as age 3 and 4. And this is also to say you do not have to be an expert or a perfect financial example in order to be the person who brings these conversations to your students. It's actually better if you're not. The more mistakes you share in general, in my experience, the more connection and the more genuine learning that might happen in the classroom. So we have here our fun generational name list here. I am considered a millennial. So I don't know about you. I'd love you to think about, and if you're comfortable sharing in the chat, what was your first spending experience, or it could be your first earning experience that you remember. I remember my first spending experience. I can't remember my first earning experience, which I mean might tell you something, but it's spending. I distinctly remember quarters, and it was the little machines that are exactly kid height at our local convenience store. Getting to get the little toy or the candy or whatever it was, twisting that knob was a big deal to me as a kid, and I remember that. So if you were anything like me, your first experience involved cash, right? That was coins. That was cold, hard, literally cold, hard cash for me. I felt it. It was a tactile experience. But our students now and our children, our students, the kids in our lives, they're growing up as digital natives. They've never not had the internet, right? So as soon as they can access a screen now, they are a consumer. And that was true before. when I would sit in front of Saturday morning cartoons and, for hours every Saturday morning. I was a consumer then. They were targeting me with advertisements, but not as pervasively as screens are in our lives now, right? The little portable, they go everywhere with us, and they're constantly being bombarded by advertisements and other spending opportunities. We also are seeing the rise of frictionless spending. Anybody here have do you save your phone, save your card on your phone? Does anyone have the tap to pay on their phone like they use the Apple Pay? So that's called frictionless spending. And consumer science tells us that we will spend more if we do the least amount of friction or touching. So that tap to pay is what allows us convenience, absolutely, but it also encourages more spending. So kids are growing up in that environment. So while I spent quarters, I like to use the stories that my cousin's kid might have pressed a button and bought game tokens, and that was his first spending experience. And that's a completely different experience than what you and I might have had. So as we look at Gen Alpha, which are all of our students right now, their spending experiences, how they look for things, how they shop for things and compare, it's not going to stores anymore. It's all happening online. And so we really want to just keep that in mind as we think about personal finance. It isn't and shouldn't be just budgeting, or I'm sorry, just balancing a checkbook anymore, because that's an obsolete, kind of tool, unfortunately. So personal finance is going to include things like being aware of online spending or being aware of the role of social media and spending. So I think part of our job in personal finance and financial education is to help students understand that social media exists to make money. That's a really big, important concept. They do not exist to connect people. They exist to make money from their ads or, by selling consumer data. That's also another way that companies make money nowadays. We know kids are spending a ton of time online. Teenagers are spending 4 hours a day. I know, unfortunately, younger kids can spend just as much time. But that time is going to equate later in life to purchasing things and experiencing and experiences after we see them on social media. It's the new great influencer of our spending behavior. And so just making that awareness, we talk a lot to kids about being safe online. We talk about their physical safety. We want to talk about their financial safety too. That's a critical part of financial education. Young people are online a lot and we think that they're good at it. They're actually terrible at it. They're still young. They still don't have developed frontal lobes. So they're getting scammed at a very high rate. Young people are losing more money to fraud more often than their older counterparts. So somebody from, in the 70s might lose more money when they're scammed. But the frequency of people in their 20s being scammed and even younger is increasing month by month here. So the amount of information that is out there, both financial and personal information, I think we want to start extending some of our online safety things to include, like I said, that financial information, personal information. So that's really our approach here at BEP, right? We are looking at financial education holistically. We look at where it can connect, like we're going to talk about math, but social emotional learning in economics, in social studies, in computers, with school counselors. There's a lot of different areas where this can be sort of fit in. And that is a little bit about us and our approach and why we feel it's completely appropriate to focus on K-5 and bringing this information to our youngest learners. All right, everybody still doing good? So we're going to talk briefly about standards, but I'm going to keep this part short because, like I said, you guys probably deal with standards all the time. Don't need to talk about it too much. So how many times, you can guess, throw it in the chat, how many times does the term money appear in the K-8 math standards? And we know in Washington, we're using the Common Core state standards. So how many times, if you were to search for the term money, how many times do you guys think it would appear in there? Thank you, everyone who's been doing messages. I appreciate it. Beth got a guess of 3. I like it. Twice, 2 times. It is not mentioned once. The word money explicitly is not mentioned in middle school standards, which is to me a crime. You're going to see terms like interest when you're looking at your ratios and proportions, but the actual word money, you search for it 2 times. Once in once in second grade, measurement and data, once in 4th grade, measurement and data, which seems a little silly, right? Because this is it. This is your real life application and example of every decimal operation and skill, word problem, all of it here. But apparently, according to the standards, this is all supposed to be mastered by 2nd grade, and we never have to revisit it ever again, which, whew. So obviously there's a gap here, right? We can, there's a gap in what kids need to be college and career ready and what they need to be successful, in the society that we exist in today. And understanding this, touching on it once in 2nd grade is not going to be preparing our students for college or career readiness. So if you take a look at this is one of our financial education standards, kindergarten through 4th grade, and it's for spending and saving competency. Right? So how to use different payment methods. This would be something we would love to see in the elementary classroom, the progression of knowledge, right? And you see how many math related benchmarks we can identify here? We're sorting coins and paper money. We're counting items to 10. We're calculating change to be returned. We're calculating total cost of a purchase. We're verifying the total cost of multiple items and calculating the amount of change to be returned. So it's baked in, right, to all of this information. We're just not going to find it explicitly within the math standard. So if you're looking for some easy sort of benchmarks, these financial education standards can be a way to find just, even just Control F, search for calculate, and it'll show you, some ideas for where you can connect these standards. I said we were only briefly going to talk about standards, and I meant it. That's it. We're done. We're moving on. Okay, so let's get into some lessons here. I listed 3. We're really going to talk about the last 2, the 2nd and 3rd there. So we're going to go through a season of goods, and we're going to do calculating energy costs together. So the first lesson we're going to go through here is from the mathematics and economics curriculum. And I'm dropping that link in the chat for everybody. Mathematics and economics curriculum from the Minnesota Council on Economics and Education. I'm a little obsessed with this curriculum. They, as you can see from the graphic, they do kindergarten through 5th grade units. Each unit has 3 sections: decision making, personal finance, and business or production. So you go through each from kindergarten through 5th grade, they'll go through all 3 of those sections. They integrate math. They'll list all of your Common Core math standards. They hit so many economic standards as well as far as the social studies, your E1 and your E2s. They hit obviously our financial education standards. And then a lot of these activities are going to hit your social and emotional as well. A lot of times it's going to be in the self area, self-awareness, self-management, self-efficacy. When you're taking a kid through a decision-making process to decide if they want to buy something, you're giving them a concrete model for responsible decision-making, which can be very abstract. It's a great way to make it concrete. This resource is available in English and Spanish. They encourage you to adapt it and change it to meet your needs. And so for that reason, it's housed under the Google kind of suite. So you do need a Google, Gmail to access it. You make a copy, and then then it's yours to adjust as you wish, which I really appreciate. Okay, so here's an example of those 3 units as I was kind of talking about. So in 3rd grade, you would go through Danny Chooses a Pet. It's, again, fantastic for learning steps and a model for decision making. He's looking at the pet not just as like the time or the cost, but the time that the pet will take as well, right? Service group choices is again about allocating time, a class deciding how to improve their school if they only have 3 hours and limited options. And then teaching how to read a clock with how much time, because we know students in analog clocks are like oil and water. The personal finance unit talks about money in exchange, goes through a great lesson on trading, and then a season of goods, which is what we're going to focus on. And then the third unit does a factory, the production line lesson that I think maybe some of us did in social studies, where you make a paper airplane by yourself, and then you get in a group and everyone does a step in the paper airplane, and you see if you can produce more of them. So the idea of specialization. Thank you. Took me a second. Specialization in a task in order to improve productivity. So let's go ahead and start with a season of goods. So I am also going to drop the link to, sorry, pause. This should prompt you to make a copy. I'm hoping that it does that. Here is the actual lesson plan I just dropped into the chat as well. So what I've done here is the lesson plan, as most are, is just 2D on paper. I've done what I call zhuzhing. So we've zhuzhed up the lesson a little bit and created this PowerPoint. So if you wanted to display this with your students, like I said, you'll receive this presentation, edit it however you want, and you could use it in the classroom to run through the lesson. Just trying to make it as easy as possible for you. So the first parts of the lesson, our learning objective is that the kids can list goods and services that are used in each of the 4 seasons. Now, depending on the age, you might want to go through a video that they have. They linked the video in the lesson plan. I've just put it into the slideshow. The video of the 4 seasons for kids, just kind of taking through. Now, the fun thing, having taught in Arizona, I have kind of a unique perspective on this because we did not have all 4 seasons in Arizona. And so it is always cool to encourage students to think about people they know or your lived experience in a different place, different geography, and different climate, because that really will impact the economy of that area, as we see later. We are not going to watch the video because I just believe you guys understand your season. I just believe that for you. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about goods and services. We want to talk about goods. What are goods? Goods are objects that satisfy our needs and wants. This is a place that I deviated from the lesson. They will define it as something that satisfies your wants, just wants. But in my head, like we look at my examples, right? Medicine is a good, and medicine is a need, not a want. So I think that goods and services economically can satisfy both our needs and wants. So that's a small definition change that I made. So you could have the kids guess, identify, and I put these notes in the PowerPoint as well. Identify each of these little icons. We have our donuts, our medicine. I would be interested. It could be a video game console. It could be a DVD player. It could be, we'll see what they think it is. And then of course, a boomerang. Then you can ask them, have you consumed or used any of these goods today? Anybody here? Have anybody had, oh, I have. I've used one. I've used medicine today, right? Anybody had a donut today? I'm jealous if you did. So seeing if the kids have used any of these goods or services today, maybe not today. What about in the last week? What about in the last month, right? Maybe, I'm sure most kids maybe have had a donut or some sort of sweet, maybe taken some medicine and used like a video game console or watched TV or stream something. But the boomerang is one that I'm not sure that anyone would ever have used that good, right? That doesn't mean it's not a good, depending on how young your kids are, right? It's a common good where, well, stereotypically, we would see it in like Australian countries, right? So just a little note, like again, some cultural relevance. Sometimes goods and services aren't always familiar to us, but they're still goods and services. And then would you use these goods all year? I mean, we're assuming the boomerang could be used year round. My lived experience ends there. So, right. So you're having these conversations, you're talking about goods, have the kids list different goods they can see in the classroom. And then we have this little activity, and I adapted this from the lesson. It was kind of hidden a little bit in the MCEE materials. So I thought I'd bring it out, make it easy to find, kind of put it front and center. So this one I'm going to have you guys, I need a little participation. So if you can get near your computer, I appreciate it. So we would bring this PowerPoint or this slide up and say, we talked about goods. So have you noticed that aisle or that section in your grocery store that is about seasonal goods? Right? Seasonal goods are sold during a specific time of year. So again, this is a great time to reference Halloween. We just had that seasonal good, right? And it started very first week in October. What seasonal good do we have now in our grocery stores? Yes, right now, pumpkins, everything is Thanksgiving, like ham, turkey, all the Thanksgiving stuff. That's the next big thing coming up. So they'll push it. And we know the day after Thanksgiving, we will flip that and we will see Christmas or whatever your winter holiday of choice is, right? So we can talk about these seasonal goods, but they're not just holidays. They're also just for seasons, right? Yes, Trader Joe's for the win. Absolutely. So seasonal goods are specific to one time of year. So for oopsies, sorry about that. So for spring, Linda and I were talking before we were testing this thing out. So what is a good that people need or want during the spring? And Linda said flowers for your garden, which is a great in the springtime, I will always see the little seed packet displays. We don't really see those any other time of year, and that makes sense. You can't put them in any time of year. Can someone else in the chat give me, oops, why does that keep something else that people would need or want in the springtime only? Right, springtime would be Easter. So what kind of things would you see around that time? Right. Yes, awesome. Yep, eggs, candy, basket in April, right? For Easter. Then the other thing that kids might key in on, oh yes, the peeps. The other thing that kids might key in on in spring is the weather changes, right? Our rain comes back and things are growing and they're beautiful. So they might say something like rain boots or an umbrella because the weather in our part of the world would dictate that. So you could go through and solicit student answers for summer and winter. This is adaptable here. So if you wanted to choose spring, if you want to put fall in there, obviously I didn't. You can do that as well. But so you're getting the kids thinking about the specific goods they would use or spend money on. What are people trying to get you to spend money on during specific times of the year? Then we're going to move on to services, right? The other thing we pay for, the verb, the action word that satisfy our needs and wants. So again, sort of the same thing. I put 4 icons up here and I would ask them, blah, blah, blah. I'm so sorry. So you would define services as actions that satisfy our economic our wants and needs, but that services can involve goods, but they are actions instead. So the example here that I was just looking for and lost, sorry, my train of thought. So a rake is a good, but raking leaves is a service. So for our younger kids, we want to make sure we're making that differentiation. Ask them, what do you think the services are here? Identify the services just based on the icon, right? So for the scissors, I was thinking they'd probably think like haircut, maybe, I don't know, sewing or getting clothes made. I don't know where that would be a thing. The car or the bus could be a bus ride or any kind of trip. The cash register, buying something, paying for something, maybe even getting accessing cash, and then pizza making or pizza delivery. Then we go through the same question. Have you consumed or used any of these services today? Some of the kids will have taken the bus ride. So I was kind of put that in there hoping that they would be like, yeah, I took the bus today, right? And in the last week or the last month, more common, I think, maybe the pizza or the shopping. And then would you use these services all year? Yes. Again, these are not seasonal services. These are year-round services. So we're deep in reinforcing economics here, right? Which is simple, but a real key foundation of financial literacy. And then I created, again, just sort of the same ideas, the same activity that you could do with the kids, just identifying different services. And the services one, I thought, maybe they'd need a little bit of a boost on that one or some scaffolded support. So there is example answers in the PowerPoint notes. So for example, during the summer, one service I thought that would be provided in the summer and not really provided any other time. And please let me know if you guys can think of anyone else. Lifeguarding is a service or anything relating to a pool. So like a pool cleaning, maybe, or related to swimming that I was trying to think of. Yeah, lawn mowing. I think you could definitely start lawn mowing in spring and end up and yeah, you do it all the way through summer, obviously. Lawn mowing, swim lessons. Yeah, swim lessons. There's another great one, right? That's a service that you're not going to really get any other time. So in fall, we kind of mentioned it earlier. I think just talking about there are people, like I said, who grow pumpkins, pumpkin growing or pumpkin farms or whatever. Those are dependent on the season. Other things that happen in the fall that don't really happen any other time. I think you could talk about harvesting food, harvesting crops, a lot of agriculture in our state. And also there's a lot of seasonal work around Halloween. Actors in haunted houses and things like that. Like a lot of people who do entertainment work get work around there. Gutter cleaning. Beth, are you reading my mind? Because it's literally my task this weekend. And I'm not looking forward to it at all. But it's a fall task, right? Winter, it'll depend on the area you're in, whether you get snow or not. Like Linda's over on the west side, I'm over here on the east side. Some of the services provided are going to be very different. Like my cousin's partner makes a living plowing snow in the winter. If you don't get snow, that's not, going to be an option, but wherever you are, repairmen for heaters or something might be an answer that a kid might come up with, or something creative like that. Snow shoveling, yes, the roads, ice skating lessons. If we're talking about swimming lessons, we can build off that, right? Ice skating lessons would really only be a service you'd get in the winter. So of course, later on down the line, they'll be able to connect that services equal jobs or services equal employment. So we can get our jobs and employment doing these services, right? So we're making big connections. And then the end with a economic song, Economy for You and Me, just reinforcing producers and consumers. It is a song, I'll tell you right now, it's a little cheesy. It might go over better with the younger kids than the older kids, but it also, I've had groups that love the it's so bad it's good kind of a thing. So like middle school kids might find it so bad it's good. It's possible. But it just goes through the vocabulary, again, recommended from the lesson. So that's kind of the first part of it. The second section is where we dig into the math, because you're like, this is about decimals, Amy. You haven't talked about decimals yet. Let's talk about decimals. So we're going to add goods. We're going to put kids into groups. Each group is going to get assigned a season. And in the group, so seasons are going to add the prices of goods used to find the sum or total cost. And then we're really going to practice rounding. Rounding within decimals, I don't know about your students. My students really, really struggled with rounding and estimating, and that affects their ability to reason and demonstrate logic at times within, different math problems. If you can estimate, you can really kind of find your way close to the answer. And of course, when we're grocery shopping, what are we doing but estimating the total as we go through and add things into our cart? So it's a real life skill too. What I did here was linked a picker wheel just for a little bit of interactive options. So if you click on there, it'll show up with your seasons. And if you want to let the kids, if you have a projector screen, let them click the wheel and, now they've been assigned fall. If you like that sort of interactive thing that helps keep your students on track. So they said fall, that group got assigned fall. So what they would do is, I'll go ahead and drop fall, the link for the fall worksheet. And all of these scenarios, these seasonal scenarios are linked in that first worksheet that I gave you. But here's the fall one, since that's what we got assigned. Oops. You'll see that it has, let's see here. Bring this up and make it a lot bigger. So Ozell's friend gave him 2 tickets to the big football game, and Ozell invited you to go with him. Unfortunately, neither of you have any savings, so you must earn some money to buy snacks and souvenirs. Answer the following questions and show all your work, and use the back if you need more space. Every scenario is different, so no group are going to be going through. Ozell does not feature in any other story, and in some of them, they are going to start with savings. So just so you know, they're all different. So what we are looking at here is the first part. Ozell earns $15 to take to the game. You have your list of jobs, and we were going to come up with a combination, a number sentence, an expression to show how he could have earned that $15. So that's sort of the first section. Okay. The next part asks the students to round each item that you might find at a football game to the nearest dollar and write down that dollar total over here. Okay, so we have all of our items here for sale. There's so much you can do with this, right? They have the questions that are on the worksheet, but okay, what's everyone going to buy, right? What do you want? What are you going for? Me, I am not buying a foam number 1 figure. I have no need for that, right? But would I spend my money on a football? Maybe, and nothing else, right? So a lot of different options for exploration here. So the first thing is they want you to round to the nearest dollar. And then they'll give you what he purchased, show what he, and they want you to add that rounded price of the item to find out how much he spent. Next, we're looking at how much of his $15 does he have left. So now we are subtracting. Okay. So it's not horribly complicated, right? It's just seasonal scenarios, real life scenarios. So the next section would be rounding the decimals, which in the book or in the lesson, they link you to this IXL math example. So we talk about rounding to the nearest dollar. I also linked a math worksheets for kids rounding to the nearest whole number with decimals. So obviously everyone has their own strategy on how they teach this, but this is just how it was referenced again in the lesson. So I put it up if you want to use this example. I use the song, everyone has their own way to try to get them to rounding. So leave that up to you guys. But here is the practice problems that they give you. You want to make sure the kids have the skill down before they tackle the activity. So how can we differentiate this? Because like I said, it is totally right and adaptable. Okay. So you can adjust your starting amount if there is a starting amount. That's one way. In this scenario, you can see this is the summer one. You have $56.75 in your piggy bank, right? That's great. If your learners are not at that level, we could be at whole dollars, right? Or everything can be changed to just quarter values, 50 cents, quarter, 75 cents, right? So we're reinforcing both fractions and decimals at that point when we're thinking of quarter values. You can obviously adjust the price of your items to make them more or less expensive or more or less difficult to round. We have a lot of 99s, as you can see in this example. That's a pretty easy key to round up to the nearest dollar. So if you're trying to challenge them, you just change some of those nines to fives or sixes, for that added challenge. I also like the idea of doing both approximate and exact answers, the rounded or estimated cost and the actual total that Ozell would be handing over. Because when we're counting our change, we don't want to estimate. We want to know exactly how much we're getting back. And then the other differentiation, which again, kind of repeating, but instead of rounding to the next dollar amount, you can round to the nearest tenth or the nearest quarter value, which is, again, 25, either 0, 25, 50, or 75 hundredths. So there's a lot of opportunities here to make small adjustments based on what your students need. Anybody, if you think of any other differentiation that I didn't mention, please let me know. So let's see here. As the last part, if you have early finishers or if you want to do an extension or just you want another activity to jump on this, I've made this little extra, again, based on one that's within the original lesson. So just reinforcing that as a consumer, we consume goods and services. If you want to be warmer or cooler, what are, 3 goods or services that would satisfy that want? So if I wanted to be warmer, I could buy a blanket, some hot chocolate, or another dog to keep me warm. And then if you have one-to-one technology, you can extend that and let kids start looking for prices. What are the prices of some of these things that we could buy as a consumer? The lesson's exit ticket is put up here onto a slide. It's just written in there. Or I think it's a printable sheet. If you wanted to just do a whole group discussion, you have the slide here for that part. And then here are the standards that we hit in just that short little lesson and activity. In math, you're hitting your number space 10, rounding, adding and subtracting anytime you're totaling something or finding change. Social studies, we are hitting your economics, understanding the components of the system and understanding, choices between needs and wants. We're definitely doing decision-making and problem solving for social emotional learning. That's benchmark 2B. And then with financial education, we're covering spending and saving and financial decision-making. So I hope this kind of just demonstrates this is one easy lesson. You could do it in one day, or you could stretch it out across a couple of days and bring in this sort of financial component into the math classroom. So far, so good? Anybody have any questions on this activity so far? Cool. Keep going then. All right, let's play estimation station. So this is one of my strategies that I use a lot in math class. I used it as a weekly warm-up. We did it every Monday and we answered every Friday. So first thing in the week, we would do the estimation station. Kids could submit their answers all week if they were absent one day. And then on Friday, I would reveal the answer and the winner. So you can integrate this activity with classroom management systems or with prizes or, whatever works for you within your classroom. So estimation station is sort of just this idea that we're going to give kids a little bit more practice in this rounding and estimating skill as well. So what we want to do is just bring in, honestly, anything. You can estimate the price of items. Obviously, I listed the ones here that are money related. The total of a receipt, pre or post tax, or a sticker price of something, really any item. And they just estimate, how much do you think this costs? You can also do this with length and dimensions. Probably the weirdest but most popular one I did was, I was like, how long do we think my hair is? Estimate the inches, or centimeters the length of Miss Cleaver's hair, right? So you can really have them estimate anything, estimate how tall the wall is in the ceiling. But when it comes to prices and money, if you taught younger kids, they have a really hard time conceptualizing large numbers. And so you give them a prompt like, you found $100 bill on the ground. What are you going to do with it? And they're like, we're going to buy a car. And it's like, that is adorable, but I don't think you can find a car for that amount of money. And so kind of exposing them to some of those consumer skills as well. So we're going to play a little estimation station here today. So you can type your answer if you wish to play into the chat here. My question is, according to Y charts, which I can reference, what is the average retail gas price in Washington for the week of November 11th, 2024? And I will copy the question into the chat so you can read it if you're one of those people that doesn't process by listening. Okay. Decimal. You're saying 4 even. This is a decimal lesson. So we're looking at decimals, Catherine. Let me pull up my answer so I'm ready to go. Oh, that's our Kahoots. We got 390, let's see, 359, 386, 450, 415, 410, $4 with decimals. Love it. Love it. Very nice. Okay. So you may have to explain, this is not Price is Right rules to your students when they read this. So here's my data. Here is what I am going off of. So 3.961 US dollars per gallon. Did we have a 9.6? We closest was 3.99, I think. 3.99 for Michael. Congratulations, Michael. You're the winner of today's estimation station. So again, another great way to bring decimals home to students is to talk about gas and gas prices and taxes on gas. I would always bring in receipts with just the important information blacked out with a pen and ask the kids to estimate the total of my gas. So, I filled up, guys, I had to fill up this time. It wasn't half a tank. I just filled the whole thing. How much do you think I spent if this was the price per gallon? Or you can cross out the amount of gallons you bought and give them the total and be like, how many, this is the price per gallon. This is how much I spent. How many gallons did I get? Again, teaching them to manipulate numbers in a way that shows them they're not just numbers, they're actual real life things that we deal with every day. Okay, next, our second lesson and our last little chunk for today is going to be calculating energy costs. What? That's random, right? Well, this is a little lesson from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that I just love. I find it very interesting. The big idea here is that energy efficient appliances and light bulbs can save money, right? We see the energy efficient stickers a lot, but what do they actually mean? And is it actually worth anything to us to do that? Well, in this activity, we will go through and answer what is energy efficiency and why would it be a good idea to save energy? And we live in a state that is fairly energy efficient as well. So this is, it's very relevant, I think, real honestly to everybody because we know how much costs have gone up. But so our objectives here is students will calculate the savings from energy efficient appliances and bulbs, and then understand ways to save money by saving energy. And again, we're kind of building some cultural competency as far as being, how does our household function? I don't know as a kid if I ever really thought about how we paid for our electricity, but it's always helpful for students to know this early because when they get out on their own and independent living and they get that first bill, it's important to have some background, some schema to pull from so it doesn't seem overwhelming. So they'll give you the key vocabulary. And they want to make sure you know that we measure electricity in, watts, and we pay by the kilowatt. So that's how it is added and calculated. So we're going to do a little math here, a little bit of math here together. This is a section of the student worksheet. Oh, I was going to drop that in the chat. Let me drop the lesson in the chat here for you. You'll see the main lesson landing page, and then there's two guides that are PDFs down a little bit farther on the page. One is a teacher guide and one is student materials. The best thing about the CFPB is you can literally pull up that student material, run off copies for your class, and you will be able to figure it out by just looking at that student handout. Like they make it incredibly user-friendly and easy to figure out. I will say this is supposedly it's for middle school students. I do not see any reason why 4th and 5th graders could not do this activity. Even if you wanted to let them use a calculator, it would completely be worth it for the reinforcement, of the different skills here. So to me. All right, so one section of the worksheet will ask them to compare just the Energy Star light bulbs to a standard light bulb. So if you guys have your calculators handy, let's see. So we can all multiply by 10, right? So if the average price of electricity is 13 cents a kilowatt and they use 10 kilowatts a year, obviously, we know we're just going to move our decimal point one place value over, and it's going to be $1.30 for 1 year. One light bulb, 1 year, $1.30. It's not bad. So now we're looking at 47. Right, a cost for 1 year, it's gonna, be at least 4 times higher than the Energy Star one. So we're looking at least $4, right? Maybe 4, maybe 5. Get some estimates from kids, see what they think. Or if they're doing the worksheet, they'll calculate it. $6.11 a year. Well, that's interesting, right? So can somebody do the math for me? How much could a household save in just that 1 year using an Energy Star light bulb? That one Energy Star for 1 year for each Energy Star light bulb they use. So at that point, we would be subtracting our Energy Star cost from our normal one. Thank you so much. And we have $4.81. The average US household has 40 light bulbs. I would actually have you take a second and look around the room and count how many light bulbs are in the room you're in right now. Because if you're like me and you work from home, there's a lot of light bulbs in this room. I'm actually going to do it. Take a second, count the light. Can anyone beat 8? I got 8 in here. It's a sunroom office. Oh, Beth has 11. I love it. That would be a great example to use with this, right? So, but the average household has 40 light bulbs. I mean, average, I don't know. That could really vary. Send your kids home and see how many light bulbs they have. There's another extension activity, right? So if you're using 40 of these Energy Star light bulbs, like the average person, how much are they saving in 1 year? Because just saving $4.81, like that's a difference. But that's like not even like a cup of coffee, right? Oh, Shanae's in a classroom. Nice. Like $4.81 doesn't get you very far anymore, right? So is it actually really worth it to buy these energy efficient light bulbs? Well, if we do our math, it's $200 a year, which $200, that could actually get you something, right? That's a family trip. That's a family trip to a restaurant at this point, let alone like a Chuck E. Cheese or something. But the idea here being that while the in this moment cost, right, for one might not be worth it for you, we have to look at the big picture of those total costs. And saving $200, ask your mom or dad or adult in your life if they want to save $200 a year. My answer is yes. So again, a little activity that we're talking about where we get our energy. We're talking about, this is a utility bill that the adult that you live with pays for and that you will pay for when you're independent. We're talking about ways to save money with energy efficiency and looking at whether the actual value is. So this is a short activity that I think is just a great decimal reinforcement. Again, for looking at not just 13 hundredths, but 13 cents, thinking about it as every time you flip on that light bulb, if it's costing you 13 cents, does that change the way you use your light? There's another thing to consider here. So I hope that these lessons demonstrate what I'm saying when I say looking beyond what maybe personal finance or financial education was in the past, and really expanding it to look at how finances work in our life, how we interact with them every day. Every season is going to be different. And if they look at the grocery store, if they start paying attention to that seasonal aisle at the grocery store, maybe they'll start paying attention to, the end cap right next to the cash register, where they change those so frequently in order to, try to get us to impulse buy. So it leads to a lot of other observations about how we're marketed to today in our world. And that is what I have for you guys today. We finished up just a little bit early, earlier than we anticipated, but I would love to open it up for any questions or anyone has any specific differentiation or adjustments they might be interested in. I'm here to help. Again, the slides and resources will be available after the presentation. We'll share an email everything out to you, and you will receive an email to rate and evaluate this training in PD Enroller. All right. And so I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for being here and for listening to our ways to fit in decimals and financial education. I hope you found the two lessons valuable, and the links are there. Again, the idea was just to give you two quick lessons that were ready to go, that you could expand and make your own and meet the needs of your students as best you can. So I'm happy to give everyone back a little bit of the gift of time here. As far as clock hours, we know educators can always use the gift of time. So thank you so much for coming and for your attendance. I really appreciate it. If you have the next 20 minutes blocked off, I would really encourage you to open up that link to the either the season of goods or the calculating energy costs, and see how you might want to adapt it to meet the needs of your students.